Some people say the woods don't keep secrets, but that's a lie. In the spring of 1998, a forest ranger followed the trail of two missing hikers, and found something that doesn't belong in this world. He thought he knew the forest. He was wrong. My name is Nathan Crowhurst. This happened to me in the spring of 1998. I was 34, working as a forest ranger near a secluded area called Black Hollow. It wasn't even on most maps, just a forgotten cut of woodland along the edge of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Locals didn't go near it. They whispered things about strange lights, sounds that didn't echo right, or trails that changed behind you. I used to laugh at all of it, back then. I was a skeptic. The kind of man who only believed what he could touch. But that spring, everything changed. Two hikers had gone missing, Lisa and Mark Hanley. Married. Quiet types. When they didn't return, the sheriff called for assistance. I teamed up with two other rangers, Jonah Bry, a former Marine built like a boulder, and Eliza Malone, sharp-eyed and sharper-tongued. We entered Black Hollow early the next morning. The trail was overgrown, tangled with thyme. We called their names, Lisa, Mark, nothing answered. By midday, we found their campsite. It looked wrong. The tent was half collapsed. Gear scattered like they'd fled in a hurry. I found a Polaroid camera in the dirt. Out of instinct, I clicked the shutter. The photo printed, slowly. When the image cleared, I froze. In the blurred shot, deep behind the trees, was the silhouette of a person, tall, still, watching. Jonah called me over. He was crouched by disturbed soil, drag marks, leading away from the camp. Eliza followed a second set of tracks, not animal, not human either, too long, too thin. Like something trying to look human, but getting it wrong. We followed the tracks. The woods grew colder, the canopy above thickened unnaturally. Then we found her, Lisa, or what was left of her. Lisa, or what was left of her. Her body lay twisted in a clearing, eyes wide, mouth open. No blood. No struggle, just death. We tried the radios. Nothing. Black Hollow swallows signals like it swallows sound. Jonah wanted to turn back. Eliza and I didn't. We had to find Mark. That night, we made camp. I took first watch, and then I heard it, a sound, low, wet. Like something breathing through broken teeth. I woke the others. We listened, then the trees cracked. Something moved, fast. Jonah shone his flashlight. That's when we saw it, a figure, 7 feet tall, skin stretched thin, almost translucent, eyes, black and empty, reflecting the light like oil. It stood, watched, and then vanished. No one spoke, no one slept. At first light, we moved fast, Eliza limping from a fall the night before. The forest pressed in from all sides. It didn't feel like we were leaving, it felt like it was letting us go. We reached the trailhead just after noon. The sheriff met us with a search party. They never found Mark, never found the creature. Eliza quit 2 weeks later, moved states. Never talked about it. Jonah stayed. But he changed. He never went into the woods alone again. As for me, I started listening to the old stories, spoke with an elder from the nearby Cherokee Nation. He told me about the Nunhai, the people who live in the dark places. Not evil, not good, but ancient, and vengeful. When disturbed, I used to think myths were just shadows of forgotten fears. Now, I know, some fears are worth remembering. If you're ever in the woods and it suddenly goes quiet, don't run, don't speak, and whatever you do, don't turn around. A journalist disappeared in the mountains. What his friends found wasn't just a body, it was a warning, because some places bury more than bones. They bury secrets that remember your name. My name is Silas Merrick. This happened in the summer of 1998, high in the Granite Ridge Range of Washington State. Back then, I worked as a mechanic, fixed snowmobiles in the winter, trucks in the summer. Life was quiet, predictable, but that summer, that's when everything changed. A man named Drew Lansing came to town. A journalist from Seattle, working on some story about forgotten towns and local legends. He'd been around for a week, talking to folks, buying drinks at the Hollow Stag, and asking too many questions. One day, he went hiking up the Crowbone Trail. He never came back. The sheriff put together a search party. I joined, along with Drew's 2 friends from the city and an old logger named Wyatt Granger. Big guy. Quiet. Eyes like he'd seen too much already, we set out early. The trail wound deep into the forest. It wasn't long before the trees started feeling heavier. Like they leaned a little too close. A couple of hours in, we found something, a clearing, torn apart. Brush trampled. Branches snapped, and on a low-hanging limb, a piece of dark fabric, fluttering, looked like Drew's jacket. Then we found the cave. It wasn't marked. Almost hidden behind vines and bramble. A narrow opening, just wide enough for a man to slide through. You think he's in there? Wyatt asked. Only one way to find out. We entered. The air inside was cold, not desert night cold, grave cold. Our flashlights cut through the darkness. Damp walls. Rotting support beams. And a smell. Something old and wrong. The tunnel widened into a chamber, and there he was, Drew, sprawled on the ground, eyes open, face frozen in terror, skin pale, lips blue, his arms and face covered in deep scratches, like he'd fought something that didn't bleed, and that's when we saw it. At first, I thought it was a person, but it wasn't. It stood over Drew's body, tall, gaunt, with limbs too long, too thin, like shadow wrapped in skin. Its face looked almost human, almost. But its eyes, they glowed. A sickly yellow. Not light. Not reflection, something alive. It turned to look at us. Wyatt stepped back. What the hell is that? I didn't answer. We ran. I don't remember much after that, just branches slapping my face, breath burning in my chest, the sound of something following us. When we made it to the trailhead, the sheriff was waiting. We told him everything. They went back into the cave, found Drew, but no sign of the creature, no footprints. No blood. Nothing. They blamed it on a bear, a cougar, something familiar. Something they could explain, but I knew, and so did Wyatt. A week later, a local woman went missing, another body. Same look. Same empty eyes. Wyatt came to me one night. Pale. Silent. I've been seeing it, he said, in my dreams. And sometimes. In the woods. Just a glimpse. But it's there. I hadn't told him, but I'd seen it too. It wasn't done with us, so we went back, Wyatt, me, the sheriff, and a few others, armed. Ready. The cave hadn't changed, but the air was heavier. Like something was breathing with us. Deeper inside, we found another chamber, a nest, bones, not just animal. Human, and then, it came, faster than before, moving like smoke. We fired. Missed. Fired again. Something hit. It screamed, a sound I'll never forget, and vanished. Wyatt was hurt. But alive. We dragged him out, got him to the hospital. The creature was never seen again, but I don't believe it's gone. I think it's waiting, somewhere deeper, and I know, it remembers us. If you find a cave where no trail leads, don't go in. Some things were never meant to be found, and some shadows were never meant to move. The forest gives, the forest takes, but sometimes, it keeps something it should never have had. This is what happens when a group of friends enters the woods looking for game, and finds something that was already hunting them. My name is Rowan Greyfeather. This happened to me in 2013. I was born and raised on the Mescalero Apache Reservation, but life pulled me away. Still, the forest has a way of calling us back. And sometimes, when it calls, it doesn't want to let go. That summer, I got a message from an old friend, Caden Hollowtree. We hadn't talked in years, but he remembered I used to track game, hunt clean, and knew how to move through trees without being seen. He said he needed me, said they were going up into Echo Ridge, in the Sacramento Mountains, just a few days of hunting. Me, him, and two of his buddies, Liam and Devin. I should have said no, I didn't. They picked me up before dawn. We drove deep into the forest, beyond service, beyond signs, beyond the places people go for fun. We made camp in a clearing that didn't feel like it wanted us there, but the first night was fine. Fire. Laughter. Whiskey in tin cups. The forest was quiet, too quiet. The next morning, we split into pairs. I went with Devin. We moved along a ridge, found tracks, followed them, deer, rabbit, something else I couldn't identify, we saw nothing. Just before sunset, we heard the scream, not animal, not even human, really, it sounded like something remembering how to sound like us. We ran. When we reached the clearing, Caden and Liam were standing over a body. It wasn't one of ours, it was a man. Or had been, his torso torn open. Bones visible. But the look on his face, that was what stopped me, terror, frozen in his final breath, no struggle, no blood around him, just the body. We found him like this, Caden said. He was shaking. We tried to call for help. No signal. Of course, we wrapped the body, marked the spot. Then we started back. But the woods didn't want us to leave. Every turn led back to the same tree, every sound came from behind us. The sun vanished too quickly. We made camp again. Tired. Terrified. That night, it returned. We heard it before we saw it, the snapping of branches, a dragging sound, and that breathing, heavy. Wet. Clothes. I looked out from the tent, eyes, not glowing, reflecting, empty. Then it stepped into the firelight, 8 feet tall, too thin, skin like stretched hide, no nose. No lips, just black slits for eyes. Liam screamed. It moved. Devon shot first. It flinched. Not enough. It grabbed Caden, dragged him like a rag doll. I ran forward, slashed with my blade. Hit something soft. It screamed, a noise that still makes my bones vibrate. Then it vanished. We got Caden to his feet. He was bleeding, pale, whispering something I couldn't understand. We didn't stop moving until we saw daylight again. We reached the ranger station. Told them, they found the body, but nothing else, no tracks. No blood, nothing, they wrote it off, animal attack. Devon moved away. Never came back, Caden. He lived, but his mind never did. As for me, sometimes, I dream of the forest, but not from above, from underneath, like I'm buried there, like I never left, and sometimes, when I wake up, I swear I can still hear it breathing, just outside my window. If you go into the woods looking for something to kill, just make sure it isn't already hunting you. The desert is full of bones, some you can see, some you only feel. This is the story of a cave that was never meant to be found, and a man who should have walked away. My name is Calder Stormrunner. This happened to me in 1987, I was 33. Back then, I worked as a park ranger out in Sunstone Bluffs, a forgotten slice of desert in Arizona. The kind of place where time doesn't pass, it settles. One evening, just before sunset, I was patrolling the northern sector, an area no one visited, no trails, no campers. Just petrified trees and red dust. That's when I saw it, a glint of metal, half buried in the dirt. I pulled up, climbed out of the Jeep. It was an old camper trailer. Sun-bleached and rotting into the ground, looked like it hadn't moved in decades. The door hung open like a mouth. Inside, it smelled of mildew, rust, and something older. Furniture collapsed. Windows shattered, but what caught my eye was a journal, lying open. Waiting. The first pages were normal, notes about the land. Birds. Quiet reflections, but then the handwriting changed, the lines got frantic. The words twisted. He started writing about sounds in the night, shadows with bones, voices inside the rocks. He called it the crawling silence, said it came from under the desert, said it wanted to be seen. That's when I heard the footsteps, outside the trailer. Heavy. Slow, not boots. Not hooves, something in between. I stepped out. Rifle ready, nothing, just sand, and the sun dipping behind the hills. I drove back faster than I should have, but I couldn't stop thinking about that journal. The next day, I brought a collie, Tom Redclay. He was older. Tough. Didn't believe in much. I showed him the trailer, the journal, then we noticed the tracks, 3-pronged. Deep, too large to be human, too strange to be anything else. They led east. We followed. For nearly an hour, we hiked in silence, and then we found the cave. Low. Narrow. Hidden beneath an overhang of broken stone. You sure about this? Tom asked. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. Inside, The air was wrong, cold. Wet. Like the mouth of something still breathing, we moved slow. Flashlights cutting into blackness, then we saw the markings, scratched into the stone, symbols I didn't recognize, not letters. Not language. We reached a chamber, at the center, an altar, made of stacked bone and twisted wire, and around it, skulls, some animal, some not. Then we heard it, the growl, not loud, but close. It stepped out from the shadows, 7 feet tall, skin like cracked parchment, arms too long, eyes sunken, glowing dull orange, like dying coals. Tom fired. It moved. Too fast. Too silent. The creature slammed into him, sent him crashing into the wall. I ran, didn't look back, didn't breathe until sunlight burned my eyes again. I called for backup, said Tom was missing, that a rockfall separated us. They found nothing. The cave was gone, the altar, vanished, only the sand remained. I kept the journal, locked it away, tried to forget, but sometimes I still hear that growl in my dreams, and sometimes, when I look out into the desert at night, I see something watching, waiting, like it remembers me, like it's still crawling. If you ever find a cave where there shouldn't be one, don't go in. Some things buried in the desert were never meant to be unearthed. Some places weren't built by men, they weren't discovered, they were found, because something wanted them to be. This is the story of a mine, and the thing that watches from the dark. My name is Elijah Strongwill. This happened in the summer of 1987, up north in the wild woods of Montana, just east of Wapiti Hollow. I grew up there. I knew those trees like I knew my own hands, knew which way the wind would shift before it blew. That weekend, I was supposed to be relaxing, a hunting trip with my cousin Harlan, old family cabin, packed some gear, brought the rifles mostly out of habit. The first night was peaceful. We fished, cooked over the fire, talked about everything except what really mattered. The next day, Harlan said he wanted to go looking for an old mine shaft he'd heard about from a logger, just for fun, he said. Something about the way he smiled didn't feel right, but I went. We pushed deeper into the woods than I'd been in years, and then we found it, half hidden behind brush and rock, a jagged hole in the hillside, framed by rotten wood and rusted iron. The air pouring from it was cold, wrong. Like it had never touched sunlight. We went in. The tunnel was narrow, dripping, our flashlights barely pierced the dark. 10 minutes in, we entered a chamber, and found what we didn't know we were looking for: bones, stacked, arranged, some small, some long, all old, all clean. That's when we heard the scrape, something moving along the rock wall, claws, dragging. I turned, and saw eyes, low, then high, shifting in the dark like whatever owned them hadn't decided on a shape. Then the figure stepped forward, tall, long arms, bent in the wrong places, skin gray and damp like stone after rain. It smiled, and when it did, its mouth kept going, far past what's human. Harlan raised his rifle, fired. The thing barely flinched. It came for him, fast. Claws cut through his jacket like wet paper. He screamed. I charged, fired twice. Hit something. Green and black sprayed the wall. It howled. The sound shook the mine itself. We ran. I don't remember how we made it out. Back at the cabin, Harlan was pale, bleeding bad from the leg. We got to the road, to a hospital. They saved his leg. But he was never the same. Neither was I. The mine vanished. We searched again and again. Even the logger who told us about it denied it existed. But we knew. We remembered. And weeks later, Harlan started seeing it, in dreams, then in the trees. He said it was watching, not angry, just waiting. One night, he disappeared, his truck still in the driveway, door unlocked, rifle untouched. I found a single mark in the dirt outside, a 3-clawed footprint, burned into the earth like a brand. If you ever find a cave no one's heard of, if the air feels colder than it should, walk away, before it sees you. Not everything that walks leaves footprints. Some things move beneath. This is the story of what we found in the roots of a forgotten forest, and what never let us go. My name is Isaiah Hollowhorn. This happened in the fall of 1998. I was 32, living on the edge of the Wyoming Basin, in a dying town called Cinders Hollow. Nothing much happened there, just cattle, sky, and stories people stopped telling out loud. my cousin, Jared Tallmoon, lived further out in the woods. Had a rundown cabin, 3 dogs, and more silence than anyone needs. One morning, he called me, said he'd found something near his place. He wouldn't say what, only that it was wrong. I drove out there. Road turned to gravel, then to nothing. When I reached his cabin, he was standing out front, rifle in one hand, cigarette in the other, face pale. "Come see," he said. We walked into the woods. 10 minutes in, we reached a clearing. The ground had been ripped open, clawed like something had crawled out from beneath. The marks were deep, long. Not made by anything I knew. They weren't just scratches, they were symbols. "They weren't here yesterday," Jared muttered. "Now they're everywhere." He was right, the trees around us had gashes too, fresh. That night, we set up trail cams, 6 of them. Wide angle. Motion triggered. We sat up drinking bad coffee and watching the tree line. At 3:17 a.m., we heard it, a moan, low, hollow, like something exhaling from inside the earth. We grabbed our rifles, went to the clearing. That's when we saw it. It stood halfway buried in the torn soil, tall, gaunt, its head too long, eyes black like polished stone. It didn't blink. Didn't move, just stood there, watching. Jared raised his rifle, it turned, and vanished, like a breath fading in the cold. The next morning, every camera was destroyed, crushed. One had been buried in the center of the clearing, under a perfect spiral of stone. 3 nights later, Jared disappeared. I found his door wide open, his dogs were gone, rifle untouched. The claw marks were back. This time, they led to the clearing. I followed them, and it was waiting, not moving, just pointing. A long, gray arm extended toward the dirt. I approached. Buried beneath the soil was Jared's necklace, a silver charm of the Northern Star. I fell to my knees. The creature didn't attack, didn't move. It just turned, and sank into the ground like smoke drawn back into fire. I told them. Sheriff. He didn't believe me. No one ever does. But I spoke with an elder named Old Woman Elkshade. She said I'd stepped onto the bones of something older than memory, a thing that lives below the land, not in rage, but in remembrance. It doesn't kill for hunger, she said. It kills when it's forgotten. If you find torn ground in the middle of the woods, don't touch it, don't dig, and above all, never forget what sleeps beneath the roots. Some songs weren't meant to be heard, some chants were never meant for human ears. At Mirror Lake, they still echo, and once you hear them, they never leave you. My name is Alaric Redfern. This happened in the fall of 1997, in the northern stretch of the Adirondacks, near a lake no one talks about anymore, Mirror Lake. Back then, I was 34. A mechanic in a small town called Glen Hollow, quiet town. Good people. Nothing strange. Until that October, I'd planned a weekend fishing trip with my old friend Silas Murdoch. We'd gone to Mirror Lake before. It was peaceful. Remote. The kind of quiet that sinks into your bones. We set up camp, spent the day like always, drinking, fishing, talking about nothing. That night, I woke to chanting, low, rhythmic, like something whispered by 100 mouths at once. I thought I was dreaming, then I saw Silas was already awake. You hear it too? I asked. He nodded, pale. It's coming from across the water. We stepped outside. The lake was still, mirror flat. Not a ripple. On the opposite shore, in the moonlight, we saw them, figures, hooded, robed, standing in a circle, chanting in a language I didn't know but somehow understood. Return, reclaim, rebirth. One of them turned toward us, even from across the lake. I could feel it. Their eyes were wrong, empty, but hungry. We need to leave, I said. We packed everything, left the fire burning, didn't stop walking until the sun came up. We never spoke of it, tried to forget, but a week later, a hunter went missing, then 2 hikers. The town started locking its doors, started remembering the old stories. One night, Silas knocked on my door. He looked worse than I'd ever seen him. They followed me, he whispered. From the lake. Who? The ones in the robes. I saw one outside the diner. Same eyes. Same face. He wanted to go back, said we had to stop it. I told him he was crazy, but I couldn't let him go alone. We returned to Mirror Lake, no tents this time. No fire. Just weapons, flashlights, and a growing sense we were making a mistake. We waited on the ridge, just before midnight. They came, same circle, same chant, but this time, there was someone in the center, bound. Gagged. Struggling, a sacrifice. Silas stood. Shouted, the chanting stopped, every hooded head turned toward us, then they moved, fast, too fast. We ran, the trees felt too narrow. The air too thick. I could feel them just behind me, brushing the edge of my coat, whispering in a tongue my brain couldn't hold. We reached the truck, drove, didn't stop until we hit town. Silas never left his house again. 2 weeks later, he disappeared, no note. No sign of struggle, just wet footprints, leading from the front door. To the woods, I know where they went, back to the lake, back to the circle. If you ever hear chanting across still water, don't listen, don't watch, and above all, don't answer. The forest doesn't forget, it remembers every scream. Every footprint. Every step that shouldn't have been taken. This is the story of a group who went looking for peace, and found something that never wanted them to leave. My name is Roger Elkstone. This happened in October of 1997. I worked as a wilderness guide up near Blackroot Forest, a place most folks only whispered about once the sun went down. It was supposed to be a routine trip, for tourists from Chicago. 2 couples, young, curious, loud, they wanted an authentic forest experience. They got one. We set out early. The forest was dressed in gold and rust, the kind of beauty that makes you forget just how alone you really are out there. The first day was uneventful. We hiked, laughed, set up camp by a narrow stream, cooked beans over a fire. That night, I heard something, a snap, not far from the tent, then silence. I stepped outside, the air was cold. Still, I scanned the woods with my flashlight, just trees, and a shape, far between the trunks, still watching, but when the light hit it, there were no eyes, just holes. Black and empty. The next morning, I said we were cutting the trip short, didn't give a reason. They didn't argue. On the way back, we took a different route, hoping to cover more ground, maybe clear my nerves. That's when we found the stream again, only now, it was stained red. One of the tourists vomited, the others went silent. I told them to move, fast. Then we saw the footprints, big, deep, 3-toed. We kept going, until we found the cabin. It wasn't supposed to be there, it wasn't on any map, looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. But the door was open, we stepped inside, dust, cobwebs, claw marks across the floor. We locked the door, waited for daylight. That night, it came. We heard it breathing outside, then scratching, then whispers, not words, just sounds that wanted to be. Something moved past the window. Then back again, then silence, then a slam against the wall. We didn't sleep. At dawn, we left, didn't speak, didn't look back. 3 miles from the road, we found the ranger station, safe, shaking, alive. But when the sheriff led a team back out, there was no cabin, no blood in the stream, no footprints, only trees, and silence. The tourists left town. One of them sent me a message months later. I still see it in my dreams. It knows me now. I believe them, because I do too. Sometimes, when I walk near the forest edge, I swear I see holes where eyes should be, still, waiting. The hollow trail doesn't end where you think it does, it follows you home. If you ever feel like the woods are watching you, they are. And if you hear footsteps behind you, it's already too late, because once you've stepped onto the hollow trail, it never lets you go.